You are 26 years old and you are good at lying. Not the casual lying most people do to protect their feelings or avoid awkward conversations, but the kind of lying that requires architecture. You build false versions of yourself the way other people build houses, carefully, structurally, with load-bearing walls you never touch. You've always been this way. In college, you studied psychology and linguistics because you wanted to understand the machinery behind human belief. You wanted to know why people accepted what they were told. Your professors found you unnervingly calm during high-pressure exercises. Your classmates found you difficult to read. You found yourself for the first time in your life in exactly the right place. The FBI recruits you at 23, 3 days after graduation, through a man who sits next to you at a coffee shop and asks questions that are too precise to be small talk. You don't hesitate. Within a year, you are inside the academy. Within 2, you are cleared for undercover operations. Your supervisor tells you that most agents who attempt deep cover either break their cover, break emotionally, or lose the thread between who they are and who they're pretending to be. He says this not as a warning. He says it as a selection criterion. You pass. Your first assignment is textbook. 18 months inside a mid-level arms trafficking network operating between the Southeast and the Gulf Coast. You become Marcus Webb. You a logistics coordinator with a sealed record and a taste for expensive whiskey. You move product on paper, never in person. You record conversations, relay information, and when the time comes, you walk out of a parking garage in Atlanta while 18 people are arrested behind you. You feel almost nothing. That is, you tell yourself later, the appropriate response. Then comes the Salazar Network. The briefing is 3 hours long and takes place in a room with no windows. The organization spans 4 countries. It moves cocaine, fentanyl precursors, and increasingly, people. It has been operating with relative impunity for 11 years because it is not structured like most criminal organizations. There is no single head. There is a council, and beneath the council, there are regional directors, and beneath them, a layer of insulation so deliberate and sophisticated that every previous attempt at infiltration has either failed to penetrate it or has resulted in the death of the operative. 2 agents, both experienced, both dead within 8 months of insertion. The FBI needs someone who can go further, stay longer, and build something that looks real enough to survive contact with people who have made a career out of detecting deception. Your supervisor slides a folder across the table. He says the expected duration is 24 months. He says you will have limited extraction options once embedded beyond a certain level. He asks if you are willing. You say yes before he finishes the sentence. You become Daniel Reyes. The backstory is meticulous. Daniel grew up in El Paso, did 2 years in a Texas state prison for aggravated assault, has a verified history of small-scale drug distribution in Juarez, and has a cousin, played by a deep-cover asset who has been in place for 3 years, who introduces you to a mid-level Salazar recruiter named Thomas at a bar in Ciudad Juarez on a Tuesday night in October. The meeting lasts 40 minutes. You drink beer slowly. You say very little. Thomas talks more than you do, which is exactly what you engineered. By the end of the night, Thomas believes he discovered you. That belief is your most important asset. The first 6 months are maintenance. You run small errands for Thomas. You move money between accounts twice. You drive a car from one location to another without asking what is in it, which is the correct answer to a test you weren't told you were being given. You keep Daniel's emotional register flat. Daniel is not ambitious. Daniel is reliable. Daniel does not ask questions. Ambition gets people noticed too quickly. Reliability gets people trusted, and trust is the only currency that matters here. In month 7, Thomas introduces you to a man named Fuentes, who is a regional coordinator. Fuentes has the eyes of someone who has personally resolved problems that couldn't be resolved diplomatically, and he studies you for 3 full minutes without speaking when you first meet. You hold the silence without fidgeting, which is harder than it sounds when you are aware that your life depends on it. Fuentes asks you one question. He asks why you work for Thomas and not for yourself. You say because working for yourself is for people who don't understand how things work. Fuentes almost smiles. A week later, you are moved up. You relay this development to your handler through a system that requires you to drive to a specific location, leave a phone in a specific place, and return 2 days later. There is no real-time contact. There cannot be. The Salazar network employs people whose only job is to identify surveillance patterns, and any deviation from complete operational isolation is a death sentence. You have not spoken to anyone from your real life in 7 months. You are not permitted to. Daniel Reyes has no family, no friends outside the organization, and no attachments that could be leveraged. You begin to understand, slowly and then all at once, that this is not entirely a construction. By month 12, you're inside the council's operational layer. Not the council itself, but close enough to see its edges. While you manage distribution logistics across 2 states and coordinate with 3 other mid-level figures who do not know each other's real names. You attend meetings where decisions are made that directly result in shipments crossing the border, money being cleaned, and on one occasion, a conversation about a man who has become a problem. You sit at that table and you say nothing. The man is dealt with. You do not know the details. You tell yourself this distinction matters. You tell yourself this for a long time before you stop believing it. At the 14-month mark, a woman named Valentina enters the picture. She is Fuentes' superior and the closest thing to a council representative you have encountered. She is meticulous, precise, and she does not trust easily or quickly. She begins requesting your presence at her meetings not because she trusts you, but because she is evaluating you. And you understand immediately that this evaluation has a narrow range of correct answers. You cannot appear too eager to impress her. You cannot appear too indifferent. You must simply be Daniel, and Daniel, at this point, is no longer entirely a performance. This is the part they warned you about. Not in a way that prepared you for it, but in a way that named it, which is all warning can really do. You catch yourself thinking in Daniel's patterns, evaluating situations the way Daniel would. The line between your judgment and his judgment has been blurring for months, and you have been filing this fact under operational necessity because the alternative requires a level of honesty you cannot afford inside this life. When Valentina asks you, at a private dinner in a rented house outside Monterey, whether you have ever had to choose between something you believed was right and something that needed to be done, you answer her without constructing the answer first. You say yes. You say that the second category is the only one that matters in the long run. She considers this for a long moment and then she nods, slowly, the way people nod when they recognize something of themselves in another person. 2 months later, she brings you into a meeting with 2 members of the actual council. Your handler does not know this has happened yet, because your next dead drop isn't for 6 days. You sit in a room with 2 of the people the FBI has spent 11 years trying to reach, and you listen. And you record, and you understand that you are now inside a threshold you cannot walk back through. The intelligence you are accumulating is significant enough to collapse a significant portion of the network. It is also significant enough that if anyone in this room ever discovers what you are, there is no protocol in any manual that results in your survival. You get the information to your handler. The response, when it comes, is not what you expected. The Bureau wants you to stay. The 24-month timeline is extended. They want the council members, all of them. They want the financial architecture. They want the political connections, which are more extensive than the initial briefing suggested. They need more time. They need you to go deeper. They ask if you are willing. You think about this for a long time. You are now 18 months in. You have not spoken your real name aloud in over a year. You dream in Daniel's voice. You have made decisions inside this operation that you will never be able to fully document, not because they were illegal, but because they were compromises so incremental that each one felt justified at the time, and collectively they form a shape you do not entirely recognize. You relay your answer. You stay. The next year is the longest of your life. Valentina gives you more responsibility, and with it, more exposure. You are present for financial conversations that implicate government officials in 2 countries. You are present when a shipment is rerouted to avoid an interdiction, which means somewhere a different shipment moves unimpeded because of a decision made in a room where you were the federal agent. You record it. You relay it. You tell yourself the larger operation justifies the math. The math does not always hold up at 3 in the morning when you are lying in a bed that belongs to a person who doesn't exist, in a city where you know no one who knows your real name. There is a moment, in month 28, when Fuentes tells you that he has begun looking into your background more carefully. He says this conversationally, over a meal, as though it is not a threat. You process the information without showing that you are processing it. You tell him that is smart practice. He agrees. He tells you everything checks out. You tell him you'd be concerned if it didn't. He laughs. You laugh. You understand that this exchange has just cost you something, though you couldn't say exactly what, and that you will be paying it forward in some form you can't yet identify. The extraction plan, when it finally comes, is not a rescue. It is an operation. The Bureau has everything it needs. The arrest will happen simultaneously across 4 locations in 2 countries. Your role is to be absent from all of them on a specific day, at a specific time, using a reason you have already planted weeks in advance. You have told Valentina you need to travel for a logistics issue in Phoenix. She approved it without suspicion because you have spent 30 months making yourself unremarkable in the right ways. On the day of the operation, you drive north, and somewhere on a highway in New Mexico, you stop being Daniel Reyes. Except you don't. Not entirely. Not in the way the debrief assumes. The debrief takes 11 days. You sit in a building in Virginia and you answer questions for 8 hours a day. You are precise, accurate, and cooperative. You provide every piece of intelligence you collected. You identify every face, every name, every financial pathway. The Bureau is satisfied. The case is significant. Prosecutions will follow. You are told, quietly and with genuine respect, that what you did was exceptional. You are told you can take time. You are told the Bureau will support whatever transition you need. You sit in your apartment, which is clean and quiet and belongs entirely to you, and you do not know what to do with the silence. You have spent 30 months inside a system that required your complete, constant attention. Every conversation was a calculation. Every relationship was a construction with a structural purpose. Every day had a shape defined by invisible stakes. Now the stakes are gone, and the shape is gone, and you are left with a version of yourself that has not had to be simply itself for a very long time. You go to therapy. The therapist is cleared for classified context and is good at her job. She asks you, in the 3rd session, whether you miss it. You tell her no. She waits. You tell her that is not the right question. She asks what the right question is. You tell her the right question is whether you know who you are without it. She writes something down. You watch her write it and you recognize with a precision that is itself the problem, that you are analyzing her the way Daniel would. Looking for the leverage, mapping the relationship, trying to understand what she needs from you so you can provide it and maintain the dynamic on your terms. You are doing it right now, and you know you are doing it, and you cannot stop. Valentina is in custody in Mexico City, awaiting extradition. Fuentes took a deal. The council members whose names you provided are in the middle of the longest federal trial the Southern District has seen in a decade. The operation is, by any measurable standard, a success. You look at this fact from every angle and you understand that it is true, and you understand that it does not resolve the thing that needs resolving, because that thing has nothing to do with the operation. Your supervisor asks if you are ready to consider your next assignment. Not now, he clarifies. It's when you are. He says there is something coming that would benefit from someone with your specific profile. He says there are not many people who can do what you do at the level you do it. You tell him you need more time. You sit with that answer, and you examine it the way you have learned to examine everything, looking for the lie inside it, and you are not entirely sure what you find. You need more time is true. It is also possible that needing more time and wanting to go back are not the opposites you are pretending they are. It is possible that the architecture you built over 30 months is not a temporary structure you inhabited, but a permanent renovation. And the question is not whether you can go back to who you were before, but whether that person still exists in any useful form, and what it means to keep moving forward as whoever you have become. Or the file on the next assignment sits on your supervisor's desk. You haven't asked what it is. You know he will tell you when you ask, and you know that when you ask, you will already know your answer. You are not ready yet, but you are thinking about it.